Rated M for mature.
Don't let your kids watch it!
Hey there, Artie!
Oh. Don't tease me with that. I was not expecting to get that section with Toshiko, but that was cool. Or Toshiki. I can't remember the dang kid's name. All dumping is illegal, except on your toilet. Ignore that joke. That was a dumb joke, and I feel bad about making it. A gap wide enough for a single car was opened up in the barricade. Uisi, showing his gratitude, or perhaps a threatening attitude, with a short beep on the horn, rolled the car forward through the checkpoint. This time, my appearance was the very embodiment of the word suspicious. A baseball cap, mask, and sunglasses. On top of that, even though it was sweltering, I was wearing a hoodie. Any respectable police officer would be loath to not stop me for questioning. I had meant to be overcautious, knowing full well that my face was known. But it might have already been too late for that to have had any use. Using that as an excuse, I doffed the unbearably hot hoodie and windbreaker, ripped off the mask and hat, and threw them in the seat behind me.
ありゃ、いいんですか?
こんな小細工したところでどうせ割れているでしょうから。
they're probably not stupid.
そりゃまあそうでしょうな。
Uisi, probably thinking that my unexpected behavior was funny, continued to laugh. He laughs a lot. There are two coaches, the father figure and the EU one. like Mion and Shion. Except we've seen him flip back and forth between it. It's like he's two different people. There's creepy coach and the other guy. I think I like the other guy better. The beautiful and pristine scenery of Hinamizawa spread out before me. The village itself would have been quite beautiful if it weren't for the complicated circumstances surrounding it at the moment. I would absolutely love to take Yuki here for a drive one day. Come to think of it, I didn't get a chance to call her last night. I played around with the idea in my head. But in reality, this village wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. I had heard everything at the prefectural headquarters. At the heart of this village, the intelligence network that the three families wielded was, due to blood ties and regional relationships, unbelievably well organized. Their net spread was not just around Hinamizawa itself, but encapsulated the entirety of the city of Shishibone as well. When I first heard that, somewhere in the recesses of my mind, I didn't take it completely seriously. How could a local organization out in the boonies here have something so grandiose? I couldn't deny that somewhere in the back of my head, I had ridiculed the thought. But not only were they really threatening the minister, but they had demonstrated they had a complete grasp on our movements, which were supposed to be top secret. They were almost like the secret police that controlled a small Eastern European country, like in some spy novel. Like Spy Family? The villagers here wouldn't bat an eye at getting their hands dirty if it meant fighting the dam project. I also heard something like that at the prefectural headquarters. Now that you mention it, when I first arrived here, Uisi also said that this place was a war zone, didn't he? The residents of this village were at the same time freedom fighters. Although, by definition, they were no different than guerrillas or military. They weren't protected by the Geneva Convention, but they also didn't have to adhere to those rules either. This place was more of a quagmire than any legitimate battlefield. A secret war was unfolding. I could drive alone because Uisi was with me. But if I was to leave this car for even something as trivial as looking for a vending machine, there was a chance I wouldn't return. Even though a single shot hadn't been fired, this was a battlefield. No. The reason why bullets weren't flying was simply because it was hard for a civilian to obtain a gun in Japan. Different case in America. So they were probably just equipped with weapons other than guns that were easier to obtain. That was why Uisi was wearing that stab-proof vest, wasn't it?
赤坂さん、緊張してます。
The fact that I was apprehensive was, of course, picked up on by Uisi. If he had already figured it out, there was no point in trying to deny or hide it.
もちろんです。敵の本拠地にたった2人で乗り込んでいるんですよ。この人数では万一の時が不安です。
万一の時?
Uishi's like, I have plot armor. I can't die until the time skip.
大丈夫ですよ。
この村の人間すべてが敵ではありませんでしたか。 全員が口裏を合わせればこの村で白昼堂々殺人が起こっても証拠一つ残らない、そういうところだと聞いていますよ。
This was what the ironclad rule of not barging into a Yakuza office alone was about. If there wasn't a neutral party involved, that area wasn't bound by the laws of common sense. If something happened, you wouldn't be able to prove it, and there wasn't anybody who would take your side. It was pretty much the definition of poking the bear.
ひなみ沢地区へ向かうと同僚に言い残してますしね。万一の時は無線機もありますし、赤坂さんが怖がってるほどね。そう簡単には完全犯罪はできません
We
よ。
learned that in Chapter 3. Keiichi really tried, but boy did he botch it.
まあ、もちろん油断をしないに越したことはあり
But
ませ
then
ん
we
が
also got the mind warp at the end, where apparently he didn't murder the guy, because the guy died like days later from the gas leak or whatever the weird incident at the end was. Honestly, I feel like the end of every single one of these chapters has just been an absolute mind screw that I can't make sense of.
赤坂さん、緊張しすぎですよ。前にご一緒してた時の方がリラックスしてらしたじゃないですか。な
Laughing it off, Ueasy thumped his chest and grinned, as if to say I could depend on him.
まあ、本当の本当にヤバくなったら桜の大門にはこいつがありますからね。
Ueasy made a motion by sticking out his index finger. It was undoubtedly the image of a gun.
役に立ちますか？
撃った後の後始末云々が怖くなければ実に心強いですよ。
That's what the Second Amendment's all about, right? An officer's gun was only for show. If you really wanted to fire it, there were quite a number of stipulations, and you had to be prepared for the long probationary period afterwards. That definitely wasn't worth it. So even if an officer did unholster his gun, there wasn't one who actually wanted to pull the trigger.
赤坂さんは持ってるんですか？これ。
That's classified.
まあ一応
撃ったことは？
ありますよ。訓練でですがね。
そりゃそうでしょうな。
なら大石さんにはあるんですか？
私ですか？
Oh yeah, I fire it once a week.
まさかあるわけないじゃないですか。
What was this? I thought he was laughing at me because he had experience. The two of us laughed together.
銃口を向けたこともありませんがね。銃口を向けられたことなら何度かありますよ。銃口を覗かされるだけで寿命が3年は縮むな。
Oh, brother. Even if he had never fired a gun before, you couldn't even begin to compare the amount of experience Ueasy had over me. At a time like this, I could only marvel again at how reliable Ueasy seemed, until he's taken people to Hooters but more extreme.
そういえば日の高いうちにこっちには来たくなかったな。でも車道はここを抜ける以外にないし。赤坂さん、念のためもう一回マスクで顔を隠してください。
どうしたんです？
冷房がうるさいから聞こえないかな？切りますよ。窓を開けてみてください。
When I opened the window, a blast of hot air blew inside. And then, I could hear angry yelling coming from far away. At that moment, the forest gave way on either side of us, and our view expanded suddenly. And there could be seen the Hinamizawa Dam construction grounds. The very front line for Hinamizawa Village. The crackling blare of someone's voice sounded over an enormous loudspeaker. The roar of angry voices continued to rumble. The incredible volume had become a veritable sound cannon, spewing out its ammunition. The prefabricated site office was surrounded by two sets of high fences laced with barbed wire. Lined up front of those fences were riot police and their vehicles. And surrounding it all were the villagers. They howled out their protests against the dam as a single entity.
Oh,
there's only 25 today, thank goodness.
ついてます。
少ないんですか？
ええ、多い時だと道路までいっぱいになりますよ。うちうち車も通れません。
At first, due to their overwhelming intensity, it looked to me more like there was more people than there actually was. But upon closer inspection, there were at most 50 to 70 of them. That's even more than I thought. Aren't there only like 50 people living in the village or whatever? But the 6 or 7 propaganda trucks lined up that looked like they belonged to a band of thugs was a strange enough sight. The villagers were also wearing helmets and bandanas, as well as covering their faces with masks, adding to the oddity of it all. The propaganda trucks, after braying their chorus, had their volume turned up even higher and began to flood the area with sutras. Who cleans your driveway? Arthur! Arthur! Oh wait, that's the wrong tape. To say that the noise was downright violent wouldn't be an understatement. From this distance, it was still this loud. The glass in the office was probably rattling from the noise.
あれをガンガンやられるとたまんないんですよね。昨日の連中全員耳栓してて、それでも耳がおかしくなるそうです。気の毒な話です。
騒音規制でなんとかできないんですか？
うちの県には騒音規制に関する規定ね。
I
ないんですよ。
I like the touch that they're both speaking loudly to give the simulation that they have to talk over the loud noise.
それにほら、お経でしょ。宗教活動規制できないし、連中も頭いいんです。ね。
Is what I think Uisi said. Actually, no matter how tightly the window was shut, the booming sound of the sutras still filled the car. I couldn't even hear what Uisi, who was sitting right next to me, was saying. Jeez Louise, how are these people not getting permanent hearing damage? As the car approached the line of propaganda trucks, the blare became difficult to bear. It wasn't enough to just plug my ears with my fingers. I had to hold my head to keep my skull from splitting apart. If I had seen this terrifying energy sooner, I probably would have understood what Hinamizawa village was much quicker. Now I knew. They wouldn't blink an eye at sacrificing themselves in order to protect their hometown. Ah. So goddamn noisy. Shut up, shut up, shut up! My head throbbed and felt like it was going to split apart. My eardrums crackled, and on top of it all, I felt like I was going to throw up. With the road crowded with the throng of squatters, the propaganda trucks, and the riot police's vehicles, it was in no way easy to get by. Even if you tried to shoo the squatters with the car horn. They were also wearing earplugs, oblivious to noises from the outside world, and they wouldn't easily move. The car could only inch forward at a snail's pace. Even then, the car eventually got through, starting to leave the tumultuous noise behind.
ほら、昨日一緒に麻雀やったメンツにお年寄りさんいたでしょ。覚えてます？
Yeah. I remembered that there was an older person who didn't exactly mince words. The guy that Uisi called Old Man.
いらっしゃいましたね。
彼ね、第一航空の現場監督さんなんですよ。
Yeah, he mentioned that.
あそこのプレハブの中でイライラしながら仕事をなさってるんでしょうね。お気の毒なことです。
あれが毎日ではたまったものではないでしょう。
耐えかねて辞めちゃう人が後を絶ちません。
That's another way that they can get the construction to stop.
まあ、その度にお給金がアップしてるんで、なんとも言えませんが。
Even having to deal with all that noise and hostility, they still made a wage that Uisi found enviable. Yeah. No, I want. That's the wrong button, which is the sound button. No, I don't want the censorship level. There we go. That's the music button.
ちくしょう、こいつら。聞こえてるのか聞こえてないのか。
A group of squatters were in the way of the car. Uisi, sufficiently annoyed, laid into the horn, but there was no indication that they were moving anytime soon. In this din, could they not even hear a car horn? Or did they hear it and they were being malicious? If there were any riot police nearby, they would have made people move, but it just so happened that there weren't any around here.
もう、ちょいと待っててください。
Uisi opened up the door. The hot air and even more heated roar of the crowd spilled into the car. I have a gun! Scatters. Uisi said something as he grinned widely, but I couldn't hear what it was. He was getting them to move. Something like that? Uisi stepped out of the car and closed the door. The din faded slightly. I stared blankly as Uisi headed towards the group and started some sort of conversation. Maybe we'd find the minister's grandson at Takatsudo. At the very least, I wanted to find him there. Find him and slip the cursed bonds of this incomprehensive village. I could only pray. At that moment, a shadow was suddenly cast over me. Somebody was standing right outside the passenger side window, blocking the sunlight. I spun around, looked up, and realized who the backlit figure was. Uh-oh, there she is, and she's not happy. Hi, Rika. Are you going to be possessed today, or are you just not impressed that we're here? Or does she not even know who we are? It was a girl. It was Rika Furude. The girl glared down at me with a bored look in her eyes. Down? How tall is this girl? We're in a car! I didn't have any justification for it, but I felt like I had been found by somebody I shouldn't be found by. To fill the silence, I raised my hand as I mouthed a meek greeting. Of course, there was no way she heard my small voice in this clamor. But even then, she should have seen me wave my hand in greeting. In spite of that, she simply stared down at me with a cold look on her face. She's like, I told you to go back. At that moment, the noise and the heat spread throughout the car once again. Uisi had returned to the driver's seat. Taking a look, the group that was blocking the road had started to move aside while glaring our way.
お待たせしました。行きましょうか。
I want to know what Uisi said to them to make them move. Uisi registered the figure of the girl behind me. One of the villagers came over and picked her up. In a manner of, it's dangerous, so get away. It was then that she whispered one or two words. However, I couldn't hear any of it.
さて、行きましょうかね。飛ばしますよ。もちろん、法定速度遵守で。
Oh, of course. As if to shake off the still audible angry voices, Uisi floored the gas. Along with the roar and the din and the shouting, the villagers and the girl quickly disappeared behind us.
この先を抜けると高津戸地区です。銃撃戦の覚悟は大丈夫ですか？安全装置外すの土壇場でとちらないでくださいよ。
Ooh, are we gonna get a gunfight? That would be fun. Uisi laughed mockingly again. I was more concerned with what the girl had said, however, as I was vaguely bothered by it. What was it that she was trying to say with that apathetic and candid expression?
今から緊張したって仕方ないですよ。むしろ収穫がなくて勇み足って可能性だって十分にあるんですから。
But there was no longer a way to confirm what the girl had tried to tell me. It might have been that the girl who had warned me to go back to Tokyo again, or else was saying to me that who is there now, ignoring that warning.
警告したのに、バカなやつ。
No, or she could have said that. I had the feeling she said something like that. Higurashi when they cry.